Welcome to Inside the Force. I'm Greg Grunberg, a.k.a. Snap Wexley.
It is a period of Star Wars mania, as new movies, comic books, novels, and TV shows populate the system. Fueled by their love and passion for the galaxy far, far away, two exceptional geeks tap into hundreds of holocrons in order to bring you the knowledge and insight of all things Star Wars. Come and join them as they go inside the Force.
Hey guys, welcome to a special edition episode of Inside the Force. Today, we are going to be recording from my place of work, so I apologize if the audio sounds different, if it sounds echoey. We are not in our studio. We are on location. The reason I'm here is because I'm interviewing a very special guest, a fellow teacher, worker, person. His name is Andy Smith. Andy, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Casey. Been waiting for this for a while. We've been talking about this for a little bit.
It's
excited.
Been a while, and we've been trying to bring you on the show just as a calling kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we've had so many good conversations about Star Wars this whole past 2 years since I've been working here now.
Right.
And I think it deserves. We deserve a more dedicated episode because you got a lot of knowledge that hopefully you'll be spitting here in this episode. A lot of history with Star Wars. I think your story deserves to be shared. Andy here is what I call a purist. And he calls himself, what do you call yourself again?
Oh, man, I'm just an actual fan.
An actual fan. Okay, here we go. So he is one of the first generation Star Wars kids.
Yeah.
Are you not?
Oh, absolutely. This is the first film I remember seeing in the movie theater.
There we go. And then we're talking episode 4.
No, we're talking Star Wars. And
A New Hope Star Wars. Or just
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
That's fine.
I get you. So this is actually quite a special treat because our longtime listeners know Dave and I, although Dave is another first generation, he was born in 1977, so he saw Return of the Jedi was like his first movie.
Uh-huh.
But
he's beyond the Ewok line.
Hopefully you guys understand what that means. But so I am of the 90s generation that, yes, I knew the original trilogy before I saw the prequels, so I was very well versed in Star Wars, but I grew up accustomed to the prequels. However, Andy over here is nowhere near accustomed to those 3 films.
Accustomed.
So we will talk about your history.
Okay.
Pre-prequels,
all right,
and then during prequels and post-prequels and beyond. So we'll go right on into it.
Go for
Andy here, please explain how did Star Wars come into your life? What was your earliest memory? This is a David Copperfield interview. What's your earliest memory of Star Wars? Age? Where were you? What's the context of how you saw it?
All right, so we'll start with I was born in 1972.
Very cool.
Okay, so I was 5, 6-ish when I first saw it. Now, it's important to understand that this was in an era, for those of you who maybe don't know,
right,
that this is actually pre-VCR.
Ooh,
this is HBO and cable are brand new.
Okay.
And movies would actually run for a very long time, especially if you lived in a small town like I did that had one movie theater. So we had a theater, which is kind of a special thing in this little town. But movies would run for a while, leave, and then actually come back to the theater. And so I actually saw it later.
Okay.
I didn't see it the summer that it came out. I saw it later.
Okay.
In sort of a second. And my understanding is actually, if I saw it later, that I actually saw a slightly different one than the one that was in the theater in 1977.
Okay.
Not because it hasn't. It's been changing since then. But
right.
I mean, I remember walking out, and I remember my dad looking at me and going, "What did you think?" And I remember saying, which actually became the question that he asks me now every time we come out of a movie. That was the first time we came out of a movie together, and he looked at me and said, "What did you think?" And I said, I mean, I couldn't say. Now keep in mind, I was little. I remember this, like, I remember lasers. And I remember telling my dad that the lasers were so cool. And I remember thinking, that was, I mean, it set me up for everything afterward. So everything that I saw after Star Wars was compared to Star Wars. And so there wasn't I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark in the theater. I saw Empire and Jedi and all of those other movies.
Yeah.
All of them had to come back and had to be compared to what I had just seen in Star Wars.
So literally your first.
Literally my first
That's
movie.
incredible.
And I think the next movie that I saw was some other movie with the star in the title, and I'm not going to talk about that one. But that was my first experience. And so then once it was gone and I had seen it, it was a big deal because I had a cousin who was just slightly older than I am, who is just slightly older than I am, had seen it several times.
Okay.
And I think and this was unheard of, he saw it 27 times in the theater.
Oh my gosh.
Now today you can see a movie 27 times from Friday to Sunday.
Yeah.
But at the time, he would skip school to go watch it. He had every character. He had all of the toys, all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And so we'd talk about it. But I was away from the movie after it came out. And this is something that the only thing that I had, because it didn't, we didn't have cable in my house.
Right.
Yet, and we didn't have a VCR, and it wasn't out on VCR. This is when videotapes cost $100. Mm-hmm. So you rented them. You didn't buy them if you even had a VCR. And so what we had the toys, and we had our memory, and we had the soundtrack.
Yeah, with the vinyl.
Right. We had the fold out. We'd fold it all the way out, and it had little images in it. And we got to the point where we could reenact pretty much the entire movie by the soundtrack. And we'd be standing, we'd try and figure out, like in our theory at the time, again, you don't have the context for this. We didn't know that Luke's dad was Darth Vader.
Right. And
so we figured that he was killed in the opening scene.
Okay.
Because we were 5.
Interesting.
So we just assumed that he was the old guy who you focus on with the blue eyes at the beginning, the bushy eyebrows who gets shot. Yeah. We just assumed that it was him. Yeah. Because Obi-Wan told us, and Obi-Wan wouldn't lie to us, that Darth Vader killed your father.
Young,
and
naive
so
little boy.
That was it. So that for us, we would actually play, I'm going to be Luke's dad.
Okay.
I'm going to be. Wow. And so we would play out those scenes by the soundtrack. Yeah. Like in order. Yeah. And we would rebuild the movie in our heads. No, it's not this point. And we would figure out how to lift the needle on the album and put it in the right spot. Because, obviously the soundtrack isn't in complete chronological order of the movie, but you could move around, or we'd skip in the movie. So, okay, during this part of the song, this is what we're doing. Yeah. During this part, this is what we're doing. No, this is the second part of the fanfare. Mm-hmm. Remember, this is what's happening here. We'd reenact the throne room scene, the metal scene. We reenact all of it. We could do it by heart to the point that you recognize when you see it again, little things that change, little adjustments, little stuff. You could see it all by the time when the re-release happened in the 90s. Right. We were so excited, and some stuff happens like, oh, that's different. Mm-hmm. Well, actually he's right-handed. We knew all of that stuff. And for a long time, in my experience, we didn't have a lot of access to Letterboxd. Right. So when Luke looks down and says, "There are 2 banthas down there," you can't see 2 banthas in the first editions that came out. Yeah. So for a long time, we just would say, "Well, he sees them, and we understand that he sees them." Once we did finally get it on VCR, and once we did finally get the VHS copy, well, we would just say, "Yeah, it was pan and scan. Everything was pan and scan." So we would get that, and we had some other things that we had to adjust to. Yeah. But in fact, we would get to the point where we didn't really like watching it later, because we knew stuff was wrong. Right. And it was all based on memory. I mean, we just sit and play and play and play. We didn't have the video games that were any bigger than 8-bit. Mm-hmm. So we couldn't recreate that. We had to imagine it.
You told me a couple stories about geographically where you lived.
Right.
Oh, and how you were able to create certain scenarios in your own backyard.
Well, I grew up in southern Arizona. Yeah. And so the twin sons of Tatooine may as well have been out my back door. Now, it wasn't sandy, and actually in Yuma, Arizona, it looks a little bit like Tatooine, and looks a little bit like Tunisia. Mm. But there was a long time where we were convinced when I was a kid, of course, this is Arizona. And because when you look off into the distance and the sun's going down, and we would literally, I don't think I've ever told you this, we would literally go outside at sundown. Yeah. And somebody would try to either crank up the music or they would play it.
Like the sunset.
we'd look off and Binary
Yeah.
Sunset, you know,
Yeah.
and yeah, no, we it was really
great.
it was everything we did,
Yeah.
and we each had a different expression for each character.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if you were Luke, you relaxed your face. If you
Yeah.
were Darth Vader, you made your face scrunch up the right way. You brought your
Your brow
made
down.
a mean
right?
face,
Yeah.
and everybody had all of the lines down exactly, and we'd redo it. But so it looked like we, you know, not just in my backyard. There was a place that you could go to. We'd ride our bikes over to this kind of, for lack of a better idea of it, it was an empty lot. But it was many empty lots, and we
Right.
could go out there and we could recreate the trench scenes. We could recreate we could recreate the Jawas chasing R2D2.
Mm-hmm.
So we had these little places that were cut out by washes.
Oh, yeah.
We called them washes, sand washes, and they cut places in the stone, and you could walk through that, and it felt like you were walking
Wow.
through the canyons of
Yeah.
Tatooine. And
Beggar's Canyon.
yeah, well,
Or the Judland Waste.
the Judland Waste,
Yeah.
and we would pretend that different things were Crate Dragon before
Oh,
they were
wow.
called Crate Dragons, because
Yeah.
we just knew that it was a big skeleton. We didn't have the words.
Oh.
Remember, again, this is the era of Walrus Face.
Yes,
Okay.
Snaggletooth and
Snaggletooth,
Hammerhead.
and yes, this is what our characters were
Pig-nosed man.
called.
Yeah.
Right,
Very
exactly.
cool.
We didn't have
Dr.
whatever.
Evazan.
Yeah.
Queen-
Gosh. And so that this is the name. It was not Tusken Raider. It was Sand People.
Right.
You know, and maybe that's not politically correct these days. We prefer Tusken Raider.
Yeah.
We don't care. You're called Sand People. That might offend some Sand People, but I'm sorry. They weren't
So-
Tuskens.
You collected the toys.
Yes.
So what? You know, do you still have a lot of your toys?
Oh, okay.
So tell that story.
All right. So yeah, I
Yeah.
had a lot of the toys. I had a couple of cases.
Like the cases that
bust
actually,
cases.
like the Vader case,
Yeah, I had-
and the 3PO case, or
Yeah, I
something
had
like
a
that.
3PO case and I
Yeah.
had a Vader case, both of
Yeah.
those actually. And I'm trying to think. I know I had the 3PO case, and I'm trying to remember if I had the Vader case or if that was a friend. We all had different ones.
Right.
There was a Stormtrooper and some others, but you'd carry those around with you.
Right.
And so when you went to a friend's house, that was just what you
Yes.
brought with you.
Yeah.
And you had them packed. And I had 2 or 3 because Han Solo. I'm sorry. I'm smiling. I'm smiling right now because it's. You also have to understand that I grew up in a time when it wasn't necessarily cool to be a Star Wars geek. So, like, you kept this stuff to yourself, and you didn't speak it. Something else about my background is I play a lot of sports,
Yeah.
and so this would come out, and that wasn't a good thing. This wasn't something. People didn't wear Star Wars shirts.
Right.
They didn't. It was something you got made fun of for. Oh, well, how old are you?
Yeah.
You still play with that stuff?
Yeah.
So anyway, I had 3 Han Solos.
Very cool.
Well, because you wanted to get the one with the right head. There was a small head Han Solo, and there was a wide head Han Solo that looked kind of goofy. I didn't like that one. I liked the small head Han Solo, which, again, this is maybe the collector in me even at the time, and I'm not much of one now, but these are the kinds of things that we looked at.
Right.
You looked for that, and Han Solo was that, and like I would pass them up. So
Yeah.
no, that's the wrong head. I
Right.
don't want that one. I didn't know what that meant. I just meant that that's what I liked.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I had all the characters, and so they would be in a closet growing up. And at one point in my life, all of my stuff had to go into storage, and I had all of those original characters, all of those original skinny.
Yep.
Are we?
No, we're good. Sorry.
All of those original skinny, skinny armed. These guys didn't work out.
Before the 90s toys where they're all big and buff.
right.
Yeah.
Lightsabers in the arms. And there was a period of time where all of my stuff had to go into a storage space, and the storage space was kind of I lived on a ranch briefly, and there was a storage space, and that's where all the stuff was. And somebody told us we had a week to get our stuff out of that storage and move it to a different place because they wanted to get rid of this big kind of unsightly metal hut. And they told us that we had 6 days or 5 days or something like that, and they bulldozed it the next day. Oh my god! And so I went up one day and got one box out of there ahead of time, and just thinking, okay, well, I at least want to get this one box. So I went and got that, and all of those things were completely bulldozed.
Oh man,
in the 90s, it would have been very early, like 1990.
Did you have any Jawa with the vinyl cape?
Oh yeah, I had probably 3 of them, and I had because this is what you saw. Like you'd earn money. And
Yes.
then
Yeah.
My dad would pay me and said, I'm going to go down to
Yeah.
the Five and Dime or down to
Yeah.
the True Value where they have the Star Wars guys, and I'm going to get as many
Yeah.
Star Wars guys. And that's what we said. I want to get as many Star Wars guys as
Yeah.
I can, and whatever they had.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had vinyl cape Jawas. Everybody had a vinyl cape. Are you kidding me? And in Arizona, vinyl capes didn't last very long, so sometimes you'd
That's
have
why
2 or
they're so
3. They would
rare.
melt.
Yeah.
Or fall apart, but they would tear really easily.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan's cape. My mom, I think, glued it 100 times, put some tape on it.
Yeah.
And we talked about all of that stuff. So my stuff disappeared. I have an Akbar right now. I have an original Akbar that's from my original collection from when I was a kid. That was probably a gift because I don't think I ever would have bought an Akbar. I still have his little staff that they gave him somewhere, the little stick. They gave him this little.
Really?
They gave him this little. It
weapon
looks
or
like a
something?
long microphone. Like it's.
Yeah. Gotta give him something.
Everybody had a thing. So I have Akbar and of my original characters, and I think I also might have a pod racer pilot or not a pod racer pilot. What am I thinking about? The twin cars, those Cloud City
Almost got
cars.
you there.
Yeah, you get every once in a while. The twin car pilots. They had an orange helmet and
Yeah. See, my uncle,
Bespin car.
my uncle basically was like you, and they all grew up in Eastern Kentucky, so they had all at the hills and all that stuff
Right.
to play, for him to play with the hauler, all that stuff. So he had those cases. He had the twin sons, and he gave some my brother and I some of those toys. There's a few of them, like the Leia vinyl cape.
Oh,
Bespin Leia,
Yeah.
Obi-Wan with the lightsaber coming out of his hand, that kind of thing. So, I've got a little experience with the old Kenner toys.
I had a TIE Fighter and X-Wing, and
Yeah.
had a TIE Fighter, an X-Wing, and a Sand Speeder.
Yeah. See, that's those toys that are they're trying to recreate those style, like the backings, and you've seen these with the new toys,
Yeah.
got the same Kenner backings.
Yep.
Yeah.
I had a Cantina as well.
Oh, that's awesome. See, we also had the micro machines.
Yep, I had a few of those. I have a Falcon, a B-wing,
Oh, yeah.
and an X-wing, and a Snow Speeder.
We had a
Also had a
Vader lightsaber macro machine that if you opened it, I think it was like inside the Death Star trench run kind of thing. We had a Bith head, the band in the cantina had his head, and it was like if you opened it, it was the cantina kind of thing. So and Corey also had a big AT-AT. He had a Vader case actually. So it was, this must have been when they recreated in the mid '90s.
Yeah.
So he had one of those. We had the Hammerhead guy. It was really cool. We collected a lot of the toys, and there was periods where I would get rid of all of them to get a lot back, and
Right.
buy a lot more, and all that kind of stuff. And then when the prequels came out, I
Right.
bought all the prequel toys.
Why?
That's, I gotta see. I did my own episode. I was like, I would play with the toys and make my own little episode, 1.5, whatever. So
Yeah. Well, I remember all that stuff coming when it
Yeah.
came out. I remember the promos for Empire. I remember.
Really?
I still have a button that I keep telling you I'm going to show you
Yeah.
from an original promo thing that the theater did from Jedi before it came out. I wore
Right.
that thing.
very cool.
It's a pin.
So when like Empire and Jedi came out, you're obviously getting older, through middle school, high school, not high school, just middle school. I don't know. So how you said you were 7? No, you
I
were
was 6 years
72, so
old.
you're 6
So
years
do
old.
the math. I wasn't out of
Yeah.
elementary school by the time Jedi came out. I was still in
Okay.
elementary school.
Were how was the culture back then for these big movies coming out? Because Star Wars was obviously one of the first blockbusters. So would you stand out in line for this kind of movie like Jedi? Were you one of those guys that were able to do that at your theater?
No. I wasn't I wasn't allowed to.
Oh, yeah.
It was a big deal, and my parents would say I still had to get a ride. So
Yeah.
my parents will take me when
Yeah.
they were ready to go.
Interesting, yeah.
And so that was that. But it was still seeing it. It wasn't like now where we had this conversation when The Force Awakens came out. Which theater are you going to see it
Right.
in? What format are you going to
Right.
see it in? Are you going to get reserved seats?
Yeah.
Are you going to and are you going to go stand in line for 6 hours just to say that you did? What are you going to do with
Yeah.
that? There's none of that.
Right.
People would stand in line and
Right.
all of that, but I don't remember anybody getting dressed up, and
Really?
except maybe my cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah, he probably did. But it just was, you'd see it and you'd go home and you'd play everything you could remember, and you'd try to remember, and then you'd go, and I saw Empire and I saw Jedi more than once in the theater. I saw all of them, but in the first initial run.
Yeah. When did the first VHS tapes come out? The
first one that I remember
versions?
is 1983 and 1984.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's
that early.
Because and the other thing that I don't know. Well, my parents got one. My dad bought one. I think it was 83, and the first movie we bought was Star Wars.
Nice.
That was the first movie that we actually paid money for, and didn't just rent. And because they knew that I would, if they were renting movies, that would be the only one that was ever rented.
Right.
And so I watched it constantly. But that was 83 was the first, and I got the first edition of that. Not knowing it was the first edition, I just went to the store and bought one.
Right. So then later you bought, because you showed me this, the widescreen VHS tapes in that flat box.
Right. Mid-90s.
That was mid-90s? That's before special edition? Because I have the full screen of the originals, which I guess was also early mid-90s.
The same time.
Same time?
Yeah, they gave you the option.
So that kind of just leads me now. So explain to me now, where were you and kind of what was the environment, the context like when the special editions, so it was about 97, right? 96, 97. So what leading up to that, what were you thinking you were about to get, and like,
oh, okay, yeah.
what were your expectations for that?
Well, we knew there was a lot of promos for that stuff. So we knew that they were adding things. We knew that they were going to make, when I first heard it, I was so excited. I was like, oh, wow, they're going to add all that stuff to...
Yeah, because the commercial was like, this is how you saw Star Wars.
Right.
And then this is how you should see Star Wars or something like that.
Exactly. And no, that was exciting. What was really exciting was this is the first time we're going to see Star Wars and it was going to be clean.
Okay.
And it wasn't going to be pops and hisses, and it wasn't going to be...
Yeah.
It didn't feel like you were watching it on film.
Yeah.
But then we saw it, and I was like, yeah, I guess it was cool. Like, when I remember watching it and being really excited to see it on the big screen for the first time.
Did you see like all three of them in theaters?
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, but by the time we got to Jedi, I didn't have the heart to go on opening weekend anymore.
That was they had big changes in that one. A lot of big changes.
Yeah, and I don't know I know I saw it at least one time in the theater, but I was completely disillusioned at that point.
Yeah. Okay, well then let's start with the Star Wars, because Episode 4, as they're now kind of referred to as here, Han and Greedo. What was your reaction to all of that? Like, did you even know? Like, obviously you didn't know that was going to happen.
No.
So how did you react when you first saw that big change?
Honestly, it was just it was like, a head cock. It was like, wait, what?
But then like they made the blasters and they made Greedo shoot first.
Greedo shot, and it was one of those moments of like, he didn't even wait.
Yeah.
It was one of those, and then, okay, well, we're going to move on with this. And so we just watched it and watched it.
Because you were very familiar with how it should have gone.
Yeah, exactly how it should have gone. Yeah. And Han was supposed to be the super bad man. That was the whole thing, that you didn't know what was Han was going to do at any moment, because he just blew him away.
Yeah.
And in fact, maybe I didn't say this to you, the whole thing about Greedo shot first or Han shot first, the thing is that it's not Han shot first.
Right.
It's that Han shot.
He only that was it. He murdered him.
Period. Yeah, he shot him. Well, he anticipated.
Yeah.
And so you even started to wonder, well, Han had to have some force action going on early on. He just wasn't aware of it. Like my dad suggested that to me early on. Like maybe he knew what was going to happen before it was going to happen, because the force. Remember, Luke could with the training sphere there, orb.
Yeah.
But yeah, so. No, I just remember thinking, no, that was weird. And I saw it, I think I saw the re-release several times. I know I did.
Yeah.
And just going back and going, that's wrong. And because I knew they were adding.
Yeah.
And adding a big elephant thing in the middle of Mos Eisley, and they had
reshot some stuff, and they added some CG animals. And
then, trying to clean up the Vaseline smudge underneath the sand speeder. That actually kind of came later, but.
Yeah.
All of that
Jabba stuff, and
then I'd watch interviews with George Lucas and him saying, "Well, I always wanted Mos Eisley to be bigger, and I always wanted it to be like this." I was like, "Okay, well, that's cool." And then every time I'd watch it, I think that the Han thing actually was the thing
that's what
started like me thinking,
killing your child.
Killing, completely destroying. Because again, I'm 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old,
right?
11 years old, and we're playing that stuff out, and it by heart, and then this guy starts picking it apart, because we filled in the gaps. And we were fine filling in those little pieces. Don't do that. Why did you do that?
Changing your memories is what you kind of thought of it as. Like,
and then even with the Han thing, you're like, did it happen that way? And I remember going home and finally pulling out the old VHS and going, see, now this is what it is. And then people it slowly dawned on people that
Yeah.
there had been some. And I like a couple of the changes that they made. I'll go ahead and I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Which ones?
like
Yeah.
some of the external cockpit shots.
Oh yeah, Oh,
you know,
yeah.
I like some of those shots.
with the X-wings flying past.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
And, you know, when they lock six foils in attack
Attack-
position,
yeah.
and you actually see it from this round
Yeah.
shot. That was cool.
Yeah.
I thought that was neat because that kind of needed, that scene kind of needed that. It was a
Yeah.
little stiff, but the adding of all of the stuff at Mos Eisley, and then in Empire, what they've added some stuff with the Wampa,
Right.
and they went back and they just put in a scene, and then
They fixed some Bespin shots there.
yeah, and I guess going back the scene with Jabba
And then
and Han,
Yeah.
in the
the
carrier.
hangar there, Docking
Yeah,
Bay
the
94. So,
If you can't see, you guys can't see me putting my head in my hands right now. I'm just kind of
Someone
going.
dropped the mic. He's about to,
And I
yeah.
know that was shot.
because that was not in the original. That was not.
No.
And nor was Boba Fett. None of that was.
No.
Yeah.
We see Boba Fett for the first time in Empire, period.
Right.
And then even then, it was just a quick
Yeah.
thing. No, none of that stuff. And there are a couple of others inside the cantina. There are a couple of other shots
Yeah.
of some creatures and some other things. And some of the stuff was just stuff they had that they just added. But then
Yeah.
the CGI stuff was a little much, and it felt a little cartoony. And I started getting mad.
See now, because when I know I saw the originals before the special editions came out. Because I knew memories. Like, because I remember seeing in Empire those extra scenes of the Wampa and thinking I don't remember that being there. So somehow I'd seen the unaltered versions.
Yeah. Oh, the Wampa herd.
Well, no, it was the when Luke was hanging in the cave, the Wampa, not the Tauntaun, the Wampa,
Oh,
and then like
you're talking about the
Empire. Sorry,
Bantha, my bad.
In
Yeah.
Empire, so there's some stuff I knew that, but like before each special edition VHS tape, they had a little featurette in front of each one, telling some of the changes that they made. I'd watch those things to death. You know, so I was aware of some of the changes, like the Jabba thing. I was aware of some of that, that they originally shot it with a normal human, and they overlaid, the CG, all that kind of stuff. But I didn't have at that point. I just didn't know any better. I didn't have a problem with it. It wasn't too much later. The Han, I knew the Han Greedo
Right.
business. Because when I first saw it as a kid, I knew something was weird about it. It looked weird.
Okay, see?
So I knew it was like his head's moving in a weird way. Like, it doesn't seem natural. And then, even though I'm 6 years old watching, it's like, that doesn't seem normal. Then, like, when the DVDs came out back in 2004-ish, they released the original versions on DVD
Right.
as well for a limited time. And then the whole thing came out, finally we get to see Han shoot first and all this kind of stuff. Sorry, guys, my mic is cutting in and out. Sorry about that. Hopefully this won't be a bad problem. But no, so I saw that, and that really changed me. And I was like,
Right.
I can see why Lucas did it, but I don't. I wish it was originally just Han shooting. So do you think that because of the change, you lose something of Han Solo? Because that's the big thing people say.
Yes, I think absolutely. And we're not talking about all of the changes at
Right.
all, but that change, I think you lose. Han Solo becomes somebody who's only going to shoot when shot at.
Right.
And that's not who he was.
Right.
He was a scoundrel. He
Right.
was sketchy.
Right.
And the only thing that you had that maybe helped you understand, I mean, he had this weird relationship with with the Wookiee. Like,
Right.
what's that about? Like, and you know what? Like, he could hear him, but he was a creature. So this creature obviously doesn't have the same morality as a person. But then you see his character, and that makes him, when he comes back at the end, even a bigger deal.
Right.
Because this is where he was when you start, and you kind of lose that. Like, he's already further down the road than you want him to be on that transition.
So at this point in your Star Wars life, would you say that because already your relationship with I guess Lucas more so than Star Wars is being
torn
really
apart,
torn apart and stretched?
Yes.
So you knew though that prequels were coming around this time.
Oh yeah, no, and we're excited about those too.
Yeah. So go further now. What were your expectations about the prequels?
Well, we know the prequels are based pretty much on one line, right? Or a couple of lines about the Clone Wars.
Right.
You fought with my father in the Clone Wars, and you fought in the Clone Wars.
Right.
And that's how we or that's how we came to be, and up against the rebellion against the empire. So you start to kind of get these little hints.
Right.
I know you and I have talked about how awesome that one of the awesome things about the way the stories are told is they can take little lines like that and build an entire
like the,
story
like the
around
Senate, like the Senate's been dissolved.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Senate. Okay. Whatever. you
Yeah.
know. And-
No, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And but I think that so we were excited to hear that. What are the Clone Wars?
Yeah.
And that's what we wanted to know. We want to know what the Clone Wars were, what they look like, and that's what we knew. They were going to be that. And then also we heard that it was going to be the story of Obi-Wan Kenobi and all of that.
Yeah.
But what really got me excited, and this is hard for me to admit,
Here we
was
go.
one of the very early promo posters
Yeah.
of Anakin Skywalker as a boy, and
Right.
his shadow's on the thing,
Yes,
and it's
yes,
Vader in the
absolutely.
shadow, and I'm like, and I remember showing my wife,
Yeah.
look at this, like,
Yeah.
or that, I guess not wife yet, but almost wife
Yeah.
at the time, going, look at this, look, it's his shadow, it's his shadow. Isn't that dark? Isn't that awesome? Like, this little kid's gonna be rough, like he's gonna be Vader,
Yeah.
man. And then he's like, you're an angel. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah, no, man. And even the games that were pre-released there, the pod racing game that was released before the movie came out and all that, watching the pod racing games and all that stuff, this is going to be kind of neat. Because I
Yeah.
think one of the games came out before the movie actually did. Or at least a friend of mine had a version of it that was maybe it was just early.
Right.
Or maybe not. But I just, sometimes the timeline gets a little fuzzy because actually the same time as when I moved to Kentucky shortly after the
Right.
first one came out. So I saw it in Arizona and came out. And
Same theater? Was it the same theater?
No.
Okay.
I was living in Sedona, Arizona at the time. And I came out of the theater in Sedona, and I remember my wife asking me, what'd you think?
Yeah.
And it was I know, she didn't do it on purpose. She didn't know what the weight of that.
Oh.
And I went, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm walking out, I think it was cool. I think, the lightsaber, it was neat. And Duel of the Fates, we'd heard the music already and all that going in. And going, that was cool. I liked, we'll handle this, that moment. Okay. I was kind of like, yeah, well, I need to see it again. I think I saw it again before we moved. And then I came here and we saw it again with a friend of mine who was a hardcore fan. And we saw it and we were talking about it, and I saw it in Lexington, and
Lexington Green?
no, where we saw it was like Woodhill.
Oh, okay.
And we're sitting in there, and I just met these guys. I didn't know them. They were my wife's friends from high school. Actually, one of them went to school at Woodford County High School.
Okay.
And I look over, and one of my buddies is asleep.
Oh.
And it's in the middle of the pod race. And
Yeah,
I look,
I can.
I look over, and he's snoring asleep, like out. And I just remember thinking, yeah, that's kind of like, now I'm here with people who are Star Wars people who, this is something that I've always had with people. Like if there's nothing else, and you can always talk Star Wars. You may not agree with politics. You may not agree on anything else, but I can talk. And these are some of these guys, and this guy's asleep, like out.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's kind of where I am. And I think it sort of gave me permission to go, yeah, I don't like it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to like it so bad.
Yeah.
Like,
You said you liked Maul.
I liked Maul.
Basically, the last that fight. I mean, is probably the big highlight.
The only thing that promotes, in my opinion, the only thing that pushes the story at all is that fight.
So, what would you? Are you able to pinpoint exactly what you don't like? Like what disappointed you about it?
I didn't like that Anakin was 8 or 9 or 10 or however old.
Or just that he was such a boyish kind of character, such a kid about it all.
They try to do depth and anger with him, and it just ended up looking like he was pouting.
Okay.
And the whole, I didn't expect his eventual wife to be that much older than he was. That was kind of weird. I was like, wait a minute. I think I know where they're going here, and this is going to be weird if this is the way it happens.
Yeah, and I remember thinking that too. Like, and then that's where you had to like look into it, because I would read some of the junior novels. Like he's like 8, she's 14.
Yeah.
So it's, now it's, then it seems a little strange.
Well, 6 years isn't that big a deal when you're 20.
But when you're a teenager and not a teenager, it's a little
the difference between 26 or 27 and 21 isn't as big as 16 and 10.
Yeah. Yes. No.
That's a different thing. So I just felt like there was a long way they had to go with that.
All right.
Or give us another character, kill off one of them. And so that was, I couldn't tell what was going on. It was almost like what I felt like about the Ewoks. You're trying to appeal. You're trying to appeal to the wrong crowd.
Right. So
I was born before the Ewok line. I did not find them. They did not remind me of my Teddy. And so that, I don't know. That I think that's where I was on that.
Yeah.
I think it was that, and then like Watu bugged me the whole time.
Watto?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't like him at all.
Really? Yeah.
At first, I was kind of like, "Oh, cool,"
Yeah.
but then this flying guy. No,
And we're not going to even talk about Jar Jar, are we?
who? And see, I was excited about this character because we'd seen some pre-shots of him,
Yeah.
of the character, and how they're going to do this with this extended headpiece
Yeah,
that he had to
yeah.
wear on set and all this stuff. And I was thinking that was really that could be interesting. That's
Yeah.
going to be interesting to see how they use the CGI because we're talking post Jurassic Park here. So
Right.
what can they do now?
Yeah, true.
And I just felt like, unfortunately, our director had the same idea. What can I do now? You know, like, whoa, what if we tried?
Yeah.
And I felt like he just was messing with my story, man. You know, like this really, we're gonna have a bass bait. We're gonna drive around in a bass bait in a weird lake. Like we went into a lagoon, and now we're in this underground cavernous thing, and we're driving something that looks a lot like a spinner bait. Oh, hey, look, an anglerfish. Like where'd the anglerfish come from? That's weird.
But what would you have, like, if you were to do a prequels?
Okay, I mean,
What would you focus on?
Well, one, I'd like to see some development of Qui-Gon Jinn. If we're going to develop him and make him, because it feels like retroactively we've gone back and said he was a great master.
Yeah.
But we don't get that sense in the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, he gets stabbed and he just dies.
Okay.
And going in, you're like, well, why didn't he disappear?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what happened there? Now, they will back and apologize for that later, and they explain that this is a whole thing that nobody really knows about yet. Or some people might know about, and then he happened to be working on it, but he can't, fade out
Right.
like Obi-Wan did yet. So I don't completely get that.
Right.
But I'd love to see that relationship go ahead and develop the relationship between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan.
Okay.
And start with that. And then you have finding this apprentice, and maybe there's some tension between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan over who gets to train him or who should.
Yeah.
Maybe Obi-Wan doesn't want him to be trained. He thinks, no, you can't train this guy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's a loose cannon. Maybe we see him doing some stuff.
Right.
Dishonesty here or there, or maybe he has a fit, and does something stupid. That would have been fun. Having him actually use the Force to, if you're going to do it, if you have to have a pod race.
Yeah.
And the kid has to be, I still think he has to be at least 13 or 14 years old. Maybe have him like do a little quick, out of anger, kind of a moment.
Right.
Where he loses it and Sebulba goes flying off and he accidentally kills him, but at the same time, you know what? He doesn't feel so bad about it.
Yeah.
And we kind of see that. And maybe Qui-Gon in his eagerness to train him misses something that Obi-Wan sees. And we also get a sense that Obi-Wan now is kind of powerful and strong, even though he's just a learner at the time.
Right.
I'd like to see them both be developed that way.
Yeah.
And then you get a sense of, Obi-Wan is always reluctant. And then you have a wall. You have an emotional wall there between Obi-Wan and Anakin, because he's reluctant from the very beginning. I'm going to train this guy. And then now we have this guilt piece thrown in with Obi-Wan. I never really went all in.
Right.
And maybe if I had, this would have been different. And, I think that I just feel like we just missed all that. We missed all that chance.
Yeah. Well, but so like to cap off the prequels, it's like your Revenge of the Sith. Would you end it similarly? Like, because to me, like I feel like it just lines up.
Oh, Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith. So episode 3.
Yeah. See, that's the only one that I think I'll give a little bit to.
Yeah.
And you know that.
Yeah. Because episode 2, I agree with you. It's a horrible movie, but it has its moments. But episode 2 we can just skim over that.
Isn't that the one where Boba Fett actually used his jetpack? Though no, it's what the other Fett did.
Jango, the D is silent.
Well, that was neat.
So
and he fired the thing off. He fired his missile, which. I haven't had this conversation with you, but there's a moment. When we were kids, you could get a Boba Fett that shot his missile.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And it was either that or a Battlestar Galactica thing that was on the same sort of mechanism, and somebody choked on it and died. And it was like a thing. And so he fires off his missile, and my friend and I are high-fiving each other. But we're not high-fiving each other because it was a cool moment, because we all wanted that toy so bad.
Yes.
And so to see that happen, like,
Yeah.
and we were like literally in the theater, we high-fived each other at that moment. And so we just went, and we walked out, and after that whole movie was over with, and I also will say it was really cool to see, you know, Yoda light up the saber, to not have to touch it and just have it fly to his hand. That was neat.
Yeah.
But so we high five, we get out of there, and we look at each other and we go, one kid ruined it for everybody. Like, that one kid, man. I know we were that way, but we could have had that the whole time.
Yeah.
And where was that? Why didn't he fire that thing off in the?
There's so many things.
But going into the last one, I think that Revenge of the Sith ended well. I remember reading there was a screensaver set that used to buy those for your computer.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
And there was a screensaver set and part of the screensaver was the original script. And so you could sit and it would scroll through, or you could actually go into it and do it yourself too. Right. And I read it, and there was a moment in there where, and I remember reading it at my friend's house, like finding that I could do this. I was over there playing X-Wing, and playing X-Wing, and I realized all of a sudden that this thing, he said, this really does have this on it? You know, and I read it, and it was like 2 a.m, and I read the whole thing all night. And that moment where Obi-Wan is looking at Anakin,
right,
and he's getting burned up.
Yeah.
And the only thing, see, again, this is what I thought would have been awesome, is if he had actually saved Anakin, and Anakin still resents him because he knows that wall was there that he didn't use.
So did you know that fight was coming though before the prequels? Because that was always like a well-known thing, wasn't it? Like that there's a lava planet, and they fought and that kind of thing.
Yeah, in fact, I think maybe that's part of the last one was one of those.
Because it was like finally.
At least they did that.
Yeah.
At least they did that.
Right.
And, you know, I think that influenced the way a lot of other movies were made after that. I think it influenced the way Lord of the Rings was made. I think the fact that he went so far with the CGI and so far off, everything was blue screen, that a lot of people, I think maybe Peter Jackson looked at it and said, no, you can't do it. You got to do some other stuff. You got to throw in the real thing.
So leaving the prequels, your relationship is even more strained. So when the Clone Wars TV show and the Rebels TV show came out, did that like at all help mend the relationship between you?
Okay, let's go back and talk about the actual Clone Wars,
the macro series.
Yes,
yeah, we've talked about this before. So.
Now, because that was done by a fan who's almost exactly my age,
right?
Same guy who did Samurai Jack and all of that. I can't ever say his first name. I'm always afraid to say it. Jen D.
I have no idea. I'm not gonna try.
Anyway, he did a great job because he's a fan, and he's a real fan, and you could see it. Even his Star Wars episode of Samurai Jack is pretty awesome,
right?
But it was like, you know, all those characters done in kind of a goofy way, but still very much like this is the original feel,
right?
You know, you've got that scene between Anakin Skywalker and Asajj Ventress where he essentially kills Asajj, and you see the flashing and the anger of all of that.
Yeah,
I just felt like that even had a better feel than the initial Clone Wars stuff, the CGI stuff,
the 3D,
the 3D animation, all that. But now we've talked about this before, and that I felt like the show got older and got better.
It did, definitely, and especially Rebels, because Clone Wars ended. And Rebels, now we're in the second season of Rebels, and you just saw the finale of season 2.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Okay, so talking about Clone Wars, and I'll kind of...
Yes.
I don't want to... I know we might be tight on time.
No, we're fine.
I think that... So Clone Wars, I watched, and I sort of watched it out of the corner of my eye, and thought, okay, we're back to this trying to... And that was the other thing. We're back to trying to do a big commercial.
Yeah.
It's all a big ad for toys. Yeah. And I'm just so tired of George Lucas trying to sell me toys. Like, the stuff is cool, but at least give me a story.
Yeah.
Give me something. I actually turned out I liked that better than any of the 3 prequels as I watched on. And the final, not the Netflix, but the final broadcast, I thought was awesome.
Ahsoka
leaving. I thought that you really get... Now we're starting to see some Darth Vader development here.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, absolutely.
And I felt like a lot of that was explained, and it wasn't done by a cardboard cutout trying to act. And I kind of got through that. And sorry, man, I'm criticizing you, and I don't even do your job. I apologize.
Yeah, I mean,
not you. I'm talking about. I'm talking about Hayden.
Yeah, and it is a lot of director choice with that,
or lack of director.
True.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, going on. That's the thing that breaks your heart, is that that at one time George Lucas was a great storyteller.
Yeah.
And I feel like he lost it. You know, like Kumar in the elevator. He just he lost it, man. And I don't think that. I think he started selling toys.
Yeah.
And I think that that was the big fight in the last movie in Jedi was, we're doing this to sell toys, not to tell a good story. And I know he had a huge fight with some of his people there over that very thing.
Yeah.
They felt like he was making the wrong decisions, making decisions for the wrong reasons. And I didn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And I felt like Clone Wars was a little bit of that. But Rebels.
Yes.
Okay. Given all of my skepticism and given all of my that the connection to my childhood, and that I love the idea of the Force, and we didn't even talk about the
midichlorians. Oh. Well, maybe we shouldn't talk about it. Yeah.
Okay. You said it. I can't even. I can't. Nope. Really, we're gonna do a blood test here. Hang on a second. Let me prick your finger. Turns out you're positive. Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Let's explain a mystical force with that. I got into the mysticism of it too, and I'm not necessarily the person who's going to do that.
Yeah.
Midichlorians. You can't just, and that took it away from, what that did? It took it away from my 10-year-old self.
Yeah.
I can't be a Jedi now.
So you didn't think that it can coexist, like the scientific side with the mystical side?
No. Like there's beings that are controlling that, and you have them or you don't. It's just like strong with the Force means you have the ability to connect to yourself, not to some like microbe.
There's that Force sensitive and not Force sensitive.
Right, but that's something that's innate, not biological.
Like,
that's something
you didn't hit this line of midichlorians, you can't.
Right, like
Jedi, you can't use the Force.
Han Solo couldn't be Force sensitive because it just wasn't Han Solo. Not because he didn't have midichlorians.
Yeah,
it's because he was a skeptic.
Yep,
and skeptics can't. You got to go in a little bit. Anyway,
and I agree, because that was the thing when I first saw Star Wars, and I thought like, well, this is just Luke. He's just a normal guy, and somehow he's just learning how to use the Force.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought back then, I did think anybody could just learn to use the Force.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, well, that's it. I think that. Anyway,
yep.
I'm sorry. I could. There are lines we could have. We could have 2-hour-long conversations about one thing that I didn't like, and that's. Yep. But then also I could have 2-hour conversations about everything that I love about the story. I love about the myth. I love about the myth building. I love that the messages and the lessons that you can learn from just Yoda speak, and I love all of that stuff. So don't get me wrong. I think sometimes when I get into conversations with people like you who are, oh yeah, the prequels are valid, like all of that. But I think that there's more than 15 minutes of good stuff in those 3 movies. Anyway,
yes.
So getting on and well, to Rebels and
also kind of, I mean, we're also jumping ahead of ourselves a little bit, because at the point Rebels came out, we already knew about Force Awakens coming out eventually.
Right.
We already knew Disney, the merger already happened.
Right.
There's a new set of canon.
Right.
So when you heard the news of Disney buying out, just briefly talk about. Were you okay with it?
No, I was gut punched a little bit. I was like, okay, like now, like I was along with those guys, with the haters that were like putting.
Don't Disneyfy it. Don't put your mouse ears on my Luke Skywalker.
Exactly. Don't call Princess Leia a princess. Seriously.
Yes. Okay.
And doing all that, and now I thought George Lucas was bad, but these are the
This is Disney.
This is Disney. This is have a magical day as you walk into a store in the mall. Like, come on, this is. And I think I've made my peace with the marketing part a little bit. I think I've tried to, because I feel like the decisions aren't being made necessarily for toys. So Rebels when Rebels comes out and Freddie Prinze Jr. is announced, I'm like, wow, they got a real guy to do the voice. That's really cool. And I start to hear a little bit of it, and I heard somebody describe it. Maybe it was Freddie himself, who said something about him being kind of like a cowboy Jedi.
Yes, he said that.
And I was like, wow, that's kind of cool, kind of a cross between Han Solo and a Jedi. Everybody wants to see Han Solo, Jedi Han Solo, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe this is going to be kind of cool. And I start watching it, and then we see our first shot at Zeb, and I was like, man, that's Wookiee concept art right there. That's pretty cool. He's the Wookiee. He's the original Wookiee. Like, wow, that's cool. That's fantastic. And good reference, you know, and they're kind of paying homage to some of that old stuff. And we have Ezra at about the same age as I thought Anakin should have been, 12, 13.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so they're kind of, in a lot of ways, they sort of picked up a lot of my complaints and went, and I don't think it was just my complaints. It was a lot of, but this is what it should have been like.
Yeah.
And we have this sort of Anakin relationship with Ezra and Kanan, and I liked it. And so I started to get into it. And again, I'm watching out of the corner of my eye at first, and I had to slowly roll into it, and I actually didn't watch it live and all of that stuff. I had to watch it later. And the same thing. And actually, your encouragement, no, stay with it. I'm like, I said, okay, well, I'll stay with it. And so I got into it. I thought the stories were really good, and that they made good references, and they sort of have a Falcon, like, I told you at first I was sort of skeptical of the Ghost, but then
yeah, because it's such a different looking ship. It's like it's just,
but it's not.
Yeah, I mean it's bulkier. Like you know, I have the X-wing miniature ships up there. You know, it's like I'm actually surprised just seeing it next to side by side with the Falcon. Like it's actually bigger or thicker.
Right. Well, yeah. No, see, that's it's a Corellian. I mean, it's a.
It's some. I think it's the same. It's like a YT or something like that. I can't remember the specific name of it. I'm a bad Star Wars
But they have some design
similarities. Yes,
they have design similarities, and you can tell that they're referencing. It's like almost like a car design, and that they're making a lot of the same references that they're making with the Falcon, and that's cool. And I like that, and I like the little ship that we were talking about. That sort of
the Phantom that pops out. The back and,
like the Phantom's cool.
Yeah,
and we talked about how that's kind of reminiscent of something that Joss Whedon did a while ago. And, with Serenity. Yeah.
I mean, it's just...
watching... Okay, I said the word Serenity, so going to Serenity and Firefly.
Yeah.
I feel like Joss had a better feel for what Star Wars was in my head.
Well, because he's a true fan. I mean, he grew up with it. You know,
he's my age, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I think Clone Wars is why it got... Because Dave Filoni, the creator, the director... he's this generation now, these guys who grew up with it just like you did, they're the ones making it like their way, the way it should have been. Although George Lucas, Dave Filoni says this time and time again that the stories are Lucas, right? I mean, he created Ahsoka, he wanted to bring Maul back, he did all these little things, but Filoni, he's such a great creative director. His vision for where it should go and where he took it and where he's now taking Rebels. Right, he's incredible. Like I want him to direct a live action Star Wars movie. Really? Well, see, I don't. Yeah, unless maybe 3D animated Star Wars movie, but
well, I think that's I don't know. I think that it's just that sense, that feel that you get or don't get from the movie, and I feel like Joss Whedon kind of hit it. Yeah, but I think in Rebels, and I'm sorry, Joss Whedon actually said that once, that he was watching a Civil War reenactment, and he's like, "What would happen if the Millennium Falcon flew in right now?" And it's like, there we go. Yeah, Genesis. There it is. Genesis of Serenity. Yeah, but I think that Rebels right now, and the way that they've created their characters, I like that they've gone back in time and said, "Look, we acknowledge," and that's something that they weren't able to do with the other movies. We acknowledge that Rex exists. Right. We acknowledge that those characters exist, and that they're going to be a part of this. We see that there's a history here, and we're going to connect those. But we're going to connect those dots by, I don't know, honoring the story.
That's actually that's a great point, because that's what they try to do. Like, they could have easily had Darth Vader and Darth Maul fight in that finale. They could have. Oh yeah.
So we're going to talk about the finale?
Well, we don't have to talk. I just want to say, like, they
we can. I don't mind. I just don't want to wreck it for anybody.
Oh no, come on. You guys should see this by now. They could have easily made those people fight, but they didn't want to just give fan service for the sake of fan service. They wanted to make it relate to the story.
Right.
Although I think you could have made it relate to the story, but still, like, I understand.
They didn't need to.
They didn't need to. They did not have to. But
we've already had a
Ahsoka
connection.
Invader
Right.
fight.
We've already had a connection to that line.
Yeah.
We've already had a connection. We've already had Obi-Wan and Maul fight. We don't need Anakin 2.
Yeah. No, I agree. But so I season 3, like, they've talked about what direction it will go. But then again, like, just how season 2 ended, I have no idea what's going to happen. Like, how far are they going to go up to the movies? There's rumors that season 3 might be the last season.
Well, and doesn't it have to be timeline-wise, unless they're going to keep going through?
Yeah, I mean, because season 1 takes place 14 years after Revenge of the Sith. Because Ezra is 14 years old. He was born on Empire Day, on Order 66.
Okay, yeah.
All that stuff happened.
Yeah.
Same day as Luke. He's literally maybe days older than Luke. I'm not sure, but Luke and Leia. So
he's right there because there's an episode with
really
Leia.
Close. Yeah.
I couldn't tell if they were supposed to be the same age or if she was slightly older.
I think she's actually a little young. I'm not sure. I can't remember. Dave would be able to correct me on that. I cannot remember. But I'm saying, though, like, if each season, because I just kind of think each season takes place over a year, but it probably doesn't. I don't know. Then they would probably do about 5 seasons, because A New Hope is 15 years after. I mean, 19 years after. But
Star Wars.
Then Star Wars is 19.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. You can just, every time I say it, you should just correct me.
No, because I'll miss a few and then I'll get hammered.
But, like, so there's no telling, how far they'll lead up to it. But there are rumors that this will lead right up to Rogue One, that season 3 is the last season. There's all these rumors going around about it. So, and I love that they are making some of these connections a little bit along the way. Like, we saw the crossguard lightsaber, which
that was cool.
It was cool, just like it kind of showed, well, okay, this is where Kylo Ren's lightsaber could have come from.
Right.
This gigantic battle that apparently happened by the Sith temple.
Right. What happened there?
Like, this insane, like, and everybody was like frozen, like, like Pompeii, like, this is insane.
Well, you get the sense that maybe that was the battle station.
Yeah, like, what could have done that? That's a good point. So that, there's all this great story that they're already alluding to while they're connecting dots to the stories we already know. And Rogue One now, like, it's going to be incredible. But before we get to Rogue One, because at this point, as we're speaking, Force Awakens has already come out. So talk about a little bit about Force Awakens. Going into it, like, when the merger happened, we knew we were getting Episode 7. What were your, like, hopes? Like, what were you kind of, as soon as you heard that news and coming along in the years before you saw it, were you hesitant about Episode 7?
Yeah, I was, because the first thing that I thought was, here we go again.
Yeah.
Disney's got it, and they know how to sell toys.
Yeah.
And, they're going to wreck this.
Right.
They're going to make it worse. And because, I mean, it's hard to explain how emotionally connected you are as a kid when I'm still,
Yeah.
But yeah, I was there and it's thinking, no, I can't. This can't be.
Yeah.
Why is this happening?
Yeah.
But the thing that Disney has that I didn't really think about this, and maybe I just don't. I have the right to be skeptical still.
Right.
But the thing that Disney has that I didn't think about was they have money.
Yes.
And if something tanks,
Yeah.
it's not going to crush them as a company.
Right.
And it's not going to destroy Disney if they make a bad Star Wars movie.
Right.
And so they let people be.
Mm-hmm.
They let people be artists, and they let fans do it.
Mm.
And I thought that was really cool.
So, what point along the 3 years that we were waiting for Force Awakens, when did you suddenly become okay? Like, this is actually going to be a good movie. I'm like excited about this.
Well, my ears started to stand up when I heard that the original cast was coming back.
Okay.
In some form.
Yeah.
We didn't know what that was going to be.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, that's going to be interesting. That could be, wow. They actually are going to do that, because I had heard that there was some talk of the original production crew that we'll never see those characters again, that they're done, that they're never going to reappear.
Right.
And they're done. That's it. No more Han Solo. We're not going to argue about it.
They're just gone.
They're just gone. Yeah. Luke is going to be a faded memory, or he might show up here and there, whatever, but we're not going to, they're just done. And then when I heard that, and then honestly, it didn't come back for me, Mr. Cooley, until I saw the trailer.
Which trailer are we talking about now? The first teaser?
The first teaser trailer.
Yeah.
I went,
88 seconds.
Oh gosh. It was one of those, oh my goodnesses.
Yeah.
And then, and I was like, okay, I'm kind of excited.
Yeah.
This is going to be cool. At least we're going to see.
Yeah.
We're going to see.
Because you didn't get any. I mean, you got the Falcon at the very end of that.
Yeah, that
you
was
didn't get
it.
any of the other original characters. So you had all these new guys.
Right. So I was getting excited. I was like, those guys better not mess this up.
Yeah.
They seriously, I am not. Like, I'm not playing. They just showed me the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
Don't do this.
Yeah.
And then I'm home. We're home.
Yeah, you're home.
Chewie, we're home. Okay, so
Yeah.
some kids put that on my desk. Like they had put the iPad and they're like, you have to watch it. And I was like, seriously. And they were watching. I'm teaching my class, and there were a couple of kids just staring at me. They weren't doing anything. And they said, and I had a break, like a moment of transition, and they came up to me and said, seriously, you need to watch this trailer. You need to watch this trailer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't. I can't. No,
And this is
not now.
the We're Home trailer. This is the second.
Right.
We're out,
I was like, you have to watch this, and let's just leave me alone. Let's do this. And I don't remember exactly when that came out.
It was around April. It was a Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Some people we have in common actually in our classes did that,
right,
and they were just, and so okay, so I said, okay, at the break when class is over, I'll watch it. So I sat down and I started watching it, and I saw it, and I watched it on my iPad, and I just said, you guys have to leave me alone.
Yeah.
Let me watch this, and I teared up.
Yeah.
I was done, and I just, they go, what did you think? And you guys just need to leave because just leave.
Yeah.
And they came back and like, are you okay? Like, what's the matter? It's like, I'm not really comfortable telling you where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
I was so excited. And I texted a friend of mine and I said, I think I just texted him something, an expletive and nothing else.
Yeah.
That's it. And maybe with a lot of vowels in the middle. and then, long one.
Yeah.
And it was a long time before he texted me back, and he goes, I wanted to wait. I just saw it. And then there was a long time again.
Yeah.
And then there was this, we gotta have this thing. He just said, yep.
Yeah.
And I said, yep. and I said, I'm in, man. I think I came down and talked to you, and I said, my 10-year-old self has just rolled out of bed. Like, this is it. I am back. I'm 10, and I'm so excited. And if
opened up.
That was it. Yeah. I was right back. It brought me right back. And I felt I had to deal with the fact that I was there, and I was like, they got me.
Yeah.
They better not mess this up.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be bad. I'm on the emotional ledge right now.
Because a lot of true fans, such as yourself, would definitely. I know that they're on the same boat as you. With the history and what this could mean for Star Wars. Yeah. And then when it came out, I know that I know some fans, first generation fans, did not like it. Mm-hmm. They thought, once again, now it's Disney has destroyed everything, because it's the same movie is what they said. So there's other reasons, but the biggest one I heard was that this is the same movie. This isn't, this isn't what I wanted.
No.
So how are your reactions to the film?
I was happy.
Yeah.
And I was happy because all of the right homages were done.
Yeah.
My biggest problem with the film is Starkiller Base. If I have a problem with the film,
like it's because it's Death Star. Basically.
It's Death Star 2, 4.0 or whatever. But that was my biggest issue, and I think that's everybody's biggest issue, Starkiller Base. And then the line that kind of killed it for me was sort of that made me laugh was sort of the breaking the fourth wall was Han Solo says, he said, "There's always a way to blow things up." And I was like, that's so funny. Yeah. And so that made me laugh and kind of let Starkiller Base off the hook for me.
Yeah, exactly. And I talked about one of my buddies about it when we found out about Starkiller Base. Like, well, I hope they don't. Like, I hope they kind of are aware.
We said
of
the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope they don't. Make this a big thing, because honestly, it's not the biggest part of the story. It's Rey and Kylo. Even Finn a little bit, but mainly it's Rey and Kylo and their journey. You can have your trench run again in the background. You can have your Death Star again in the background, but that's not what we're focused on the whole movie. So it's I think it spoke a lot for it.
That's a really good point. I think that this wasn't about we have to get rid of Starkiller Base. In fact, most of the rebellion or most of the resistance or whoever they are in the story don't know about it.
Yeah,
and that's that's fine. I think they don't know what's going on until they blow up the Republic, until they kill everybody.
Oh my gosh, like that's one thing to say. Like how like they destroyed the Republic
in one shot.
They didn't really just kind of glazed over it.
Yeah.
Was that one like how'd you?
Well, you said that may have been kind of an issue for you.
Yeah, well, it was just not much of an issue. It's just like because they did the same thing in the first Star Wars when they said like the Senate's been dissolved.
Right.
So well, okay. You don't know
Right.
the implication of that
Right.
until you see Attack of the Clone, the prequels. You know, that's why I'm hoping we're getting something along the way that will show us this new
Right.
Republic, that will give us the implication of what they mean.
Yeah.
Because it's, they just glaze over it. But, in this case, though, we did see literally the planet explode and we saw all these lives lost,
Well, multiple planets, the whole system is gone.
So, again, they kind of pushed along that to get to the main bulk of the story.
But I think that was okay in that. I think what we're going to find is a very similar situation that we found at the beginning of Star Wars, because I think we're going to find that that they have to rebuild this republic, like you talked about at one point. They have to rebuild this republic, and so they have to rebuild their governing structure.
Right.
And so they have to. But then we also know that there's probably a lot of stuff going on as. It's almost like the end of the Civil War, where you have to decide who gets to come back and be part of the government and who doesn't.
Yeah.
Who gets to come in and who doesn't. Who are we going to allow back in? Because now we got the Republic and we're trying to rebuild the Republic. Well, one of the reasons the Republic fell apart was because it was so backstabbingly political and all this other stuff going on in the background.
Right.
Well, how do you do that now without Jedi?
Right.
Yeah. And then how do you have these characters who are out there? Obviously, just blowing up the Death Star didn't kill everybody in the Empire, but those people are still influential. And so I think you have this power struggle going on. It's more of a political power struggle, probably. You have these little pockets of groups of people, and because you hear one of them say, one of the main characters say something about the Resistance. And they're just feeding these people. The Republic is feeding these.
Almost like the Republic is.
So like the Republic
going
is
against its own values,
right?
By siding with the Resistance.
And so what we're saying then is that the First Order is actually the legitimate.
That's their
military.
That is their
for the Republic.
Yeah,
well, I think that they might actually be the legit. Or at least maybe they're pushing for it to be the military. I think it's
pushing for it. Yeah, because you had a Republic Navy, but that was wiped out. But the Star Killer base destroyed most of it.
So you still have this ultra organized group.
Yeah. No.
So I think that okay, you know what? We're done messing with this. We're just going to blow them up.
Right.
And we could have done this a long time ago. But we're not going to.
Yeah.
And maybe Snoke. The way that Han and Leia talk about Snoke.
Yeah.
You get the sense that they know about him.
Yeah, that's a big question.
And they know what's going on. Maybe he's the guy who comes in and is pushing this. He has some influence over this new Republic in the background.
Yeah, because again, people are it's the same thing as Palpatine. It's the same,
right?
So kind of leading forward now for Episode 8. Maybe we could speculate a little bit about what you might want to see. So, because right now you're in it now. You're back.
I'm in, man. I'm back in. I'm all in.
So, for Episode 8, what do you hope to see with this new trilogy?
Well, I think that I hope that what J.J. Abrams has said about this, and that this is I've done my setup. Okay, I've paid I've paid the homage. We have. Here we go.
Yeah.
We've reestablished the story.
Right.
Now we're going to tell you something original. Now we're going to tell you what's actually going on. And if it's that Rey is Luke's daughter, I kind of think we're probably past speculation with that.
Right.
If she's not Luke's daughter, she's somebody very close to Luke, and we're going to find that out.
Okay.
At this point, I'm almost to the point where I'm like, I don't care.
Well, that's how. That's why I think that how they're going to treat it in the movie. Like, it's going to be a big deal, but they didn't reveal Kylo to be Han's son until about an hour, 50 minutes into the movie.
We don't need to do that again.
It wasn't even that wasn't the big climax. He just kind of said it in conversation.
Right.
I think they're going to treat it like that, but even less so with Rey and Luke. Like, they may just be like, earlier in the film, they'll just say that they're father and daughter,
right?
And then they'll move on.
Well, yeah, it may be. It may also be that Luke doesn't tell her. they both kind of know, and we kind of have this like, I don't know if you're a Lonesome Dove fan, but we have a Captain Call and Newt, where they just kind of know, but neither one says it.
Right.
Neither one's going to let the other one know that they're on to them because they want to keep this kind of thing up. Maybe Luke's just hesitant, but everybody knows. Everybody gets it. I'm really excited about Daisy Ridley as a character. I just as an actress, and I don't think we're going to hear much from Finn until later. Maybe not. Maybe he'll just be in a back to tank and then that's it. But I think Finn might come in late. But what happens to Ben? What happens to Ben Solo? Does he end up having to face down with Snoke? What does he mean when he says complete his training? Does he just mean that, well, now I'm going to take his body over? Does he mean, I don't know. I'm excited to see Rey's training if it happens. I'm excited to see what her lightsaber looks like. I'm hoping for a pike.
I thought like maybe she has a double-sided lightsaber.
Maybe.
She's good with that.
I think a pike would be cool.
We
haven't seen that yet. Like a really extended, a extended saber. That would be neat. Or maybe even one that is two lightsabers in the kind of an Ahsoka thing. Common female Jedi styles, double for power instead of power. Sorry. Get into that.
So Rogue One, because for those of you guys who are listening to us, we also recorded a not too lengthy a little video about the Rogue One trailer and kind of our Andy's expectations and all that. So if you guys want to listen to in detail that interview, go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/21 Network, and watch that. But just your brief comments, Rogue One, and just kind of the future of these other spin-off movies. What's your opinion of Rogue One and these other movies? What direction do you think they're good?
Well, I think we talked a little bit about the fact that we have anyway in the past, where we talk about the fact that these are some of the stories that we used to try to tell.
Right.
That these are the things that we would kick off on. Well, what about this one story?
As fans,
kids, little kids. These are the ones that we try to tell. We try to tell that story about what happened when they stole the plans. And, pretend like we're stealing the plans, and let's what happens, and let's pretend like the carport is is the base that we're going to steal from, and all that kind of stuff.
You make your own big connections and big like revelations and all that stuff.
So it's going to be exciting to see some of that story fleshed out, and those moments of we stole some plans, and we happen to have these things, and I think that it's going to be really exciting to see. I think it's going to add weight to Leia's character and add weight to Obi-Wan's character, and I think we don't have Jedis, so what is the world like? What's the universe like with one bad guy running around who's force sensitive and can do this stuff? Or maybe there are some other characters who've been hiding, and maybe we find out just how Yoda is and Ben Kenobi are able to stay hidden.
So are you? So you're okay with like how they're branching off from I think your typical Star Wars movie?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You're getting the heist war movie,
right?
Like are there like have you thought of like other kind of Star Wars things that you'd like to see? Like like now the potential of seeing any kind of Star Wars story is limitless now,
right?
So like what?
As long as we have good storytellers telling the stories, I think it's gonna be good. I love stories, so. I'd love to see some more about Obi-Wan's time on Tatooine. We've talked about that before. I think I'd like to see maybe some of the story about Vader hunting people down. What was he? Because there was a time there where he had to do that, and he was doing that was his gig. I'd like to see more of that. But I'd love to see a Boba Fett movie.
Oh yeah,
I'm a hardcore Boba Fett fan.
As a main character, Boba Fett.
Yeah, or just Mandalore in general. I'd love to see some Mandalorian stories. I know that's probably part of the plan going forward. But man, just to see that character fleshed out, and I'd love to see that. Other people, I think Boba Fett and Obi-Wan are my favorites, and so I think it'd be really cool to see that. I would love to see him go back and further and tell I'd love to see some Old Republic stories.
Yes,
and I think that there's just
we've gotten some snippets from Rebels. You know, that battle. That's an Old Republic battle.
Yeah, and I just think there's just such potential for that.
Yeah,
I know that you play the games and stuff, and I don't. I can't play the video games because that I would not have a job. But just going back and watching even those old trailers, remember the video game trailers for all that stuff. There's just endless potential there. You can tell whatever story you want.
Absolutely,
those would be fantastic. The cinematic trailers from
the Old Republic games. So closing us off now.
Yeah.
So just your history. Every Star Wars fan has some sort of answer, and I don't think I told you I was going to ask you this, but of what Star Wars is to them, what it is and what it is not. You are clear, like you have, I think, your idea of what it is and what it is not. Like prequels to you is what Star Wars is not, and you think, we're back to getting to where Star Wars is or should be with Force Awakens and with Rogue One. Mm-hmm. So are you able to sum up kind of what this is a very, open-ended question, kind of very, maybe not pretentious, because this is Star Wars we're talking about here. So
that's right.
What is Star Wars to you? What Star Wars shouldn't be? Like, how would you describe Star Wars as it is to you?
Okay, so ultimately it's a story, and it's your classic myth of good versus evil, and it's the classic story of going inside yourself to find who you are, and I think that's that whole Joseph Campbell model. Mm-hmm. So to me, Star Wars is telling that story in a way that lets you remove yourself from your own reality, but at the same time, find something very much inside yourself there.
Yeah.
And I feel like Star Wars for me, if you're telling that story of that internal journey,
right,
then you're telling a Star Wars story. It's the same reason people love Greek myths. Mm-hmm. It's the same reason I love Greek myth. It's the same reason that I love Star Wars. That you find something to relate to and connect to inside. Mm-hmm. But you get to do it with laser beams and lightsabers and people being able to push you across the room with just a focus.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of that there. And sometimes your potential isn't good. Mm-hmm. And I love that part of it. Sometimes things don't go well. And they don't go well because the powers of the universe as they are, are, just, they don't really have an agenda. You have to make the decision within that. Yeah. I love it. I love that stuff. So that's what it is. It's a story. And it's that thing that we can learn from. And every time I sit down and watch Star Wars, and when I say Star Wars, I mean Star Wars. Every time I sit down and watch Empire, that moment at the end of Empire, when Darth Vader is reaching out and to Luke, and Luke's like, and then they jump, and you're like, whoa, wait. There's that potential. And that's what I loved about the end of the last episode of Rebels, was you don't know. You get that sense of, oh, darn. Mm-hmm. And Ezra's got that holocron, that Sith holocron that we've never seen anything. What's a Sith holocron? What does that mean? But he opens it. And only somebody who thinks like a Sith can do that. It's all of that. All the potential is there for both good and bad. Mm-hmm. And the story that they tell with that, I don't think it can be treated like a game. I guess that's it.
That's great. No, that's been definitely a perfect point to end on. So thank you so much, Andy, for sitting with me and discussing all the great things that are about Star Wars and hitting on the tough parts of Star Wars.
We didn't even talk about the tough stuff yet.
We haven't. No, we could do a whole series on this.
Give me a 20-minute window and give me a topic and we'll go.
So maybe, hopefully, we could bring you back in soon. Talk about, because we're getting Star Wars forever, most likely movies every year, maybe shows, all that stuff.
For at least the next 5.
Yeah, next 5. So
hey, Netflix.
So
come on,
it's going to be coming.
Get on board.
Yeah, it's Obi-Wan's show. Come on, just listen. So definitely we'll bring you in soon, talk more about it. But thank you, and thank you everybody, guys, for listening to us. And again, be sure to go to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/21network to watch our interview about our talk about Rogue One, the Rogue One trailer, and kind of our speculations on that. And also, you can, on that YouTube channel, you can watch all of our other Inside the Force videos and all of our videos from all of our other podcasts on the 21 Network. You can go to InsideTheForce.com to listen to all of our past episodes. We're on Stitcher Radio, we're on TuneIn Radio, we're on iTunes. Please subscribe, leave some reviews, rate us, give us some good feedback on how we're doing or things that we can do better. So please do that. And again, I'm not going to sign off as Dave because that's his thing. I actually won't even do a quote because I save my quotes for the typical traditional episodes, not the special edition episodes. So I'll just leave by saying thank you, and Andy Smith, you can say your goodbyes and to the crowd.
Oh, just keep loving the stories, and don't ever take it too seriously, but have a lot of fun.
Very good.
Thanks.
I am Casey Cooley. You can follow me at Kryptonian1138 on Twitter. You can follow Inside the Force at Inside the Force on that piece of social network. We have a Facebook page, Star Wars Inside the Force. Be sure to follow us, like us, leave comments, all that good stuff. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. Until next time, I am Casey Cooley, and thank you for listening again.
This has been a production of the 21 Network. For more great podcasts, visit 21network.com. To view additional content, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/21network. Follow us on Twitter at 21network for the latest news and updates. The 21 Network, for the fan and all of us.